Once you have your clips placed on the timeline, or once you've completed the build stage of your story, then it comes a time where you need to start rearranging clips on the timeline. And this can be anything uh, from clicking, dragging and moving clips from one place to another, or you might be copying and pasting. Just to give two examples of when you'd be moving stuff around. Now, this is a fairly short timeline. It only has 7 clips in it. So it could be fairly easy to kind of rearrange things by clicking and dragging and moving things around like that. But that's it's a bad habit to get into, because when the time comes where you have a longer program, when you have 30 clips and you have a minute and a half, then it's going to become very, very difficult to be able to get into that area and move everything out of the way to get one clip to sit in a particular area without making some sort of an error further down the timeline. So you need to have as much accuracy, and you need to use all of the tools that you have at your disposal to select objects and to be able to move them and manage them while they're already on the timeline. So we'll first of all talk about selecting clips on the timeline. Now, when you open up Final Cut Pro, you have the default arrow tool, which is actually called the selection tool. And what this does is it's used for selecting, moving, clicking, dragging, all kinds of different things, and even for going up into the menu. So it's a kind of an all-over tool that does a lot of things, and it can be used for selecting. So if you click on a clip, that clip is selected. If you click and drag around some clips, you can select a group of clips. Now the tool set, which is located on the right hand side of the timeline, has a number of tools available for doing much more precision selections. So the top one is the selection tool, and if you wanted to get back to that at any time, you just hit the shortcut A. Now the next set of tools down are called the edit selection tool set. So when you click and drag, or sorry, click and hold over that, wherever you see a small arrow on the button, you know that there's a selection of sub-tools in there as well. So the first one we're going to look at is this edit selection tool. Now this is used where you're going to do something like a trim edit, and you need to isolate just the point between two clips. So you can see that when I click and drag over these clips, instead of selecting a group of clips, I'm actually just isolating an edit point between two clips. And when I select an edit point, the trim window opens by default because it thinks I want to do some sort of a trim edit between these two clips. Now I'm going to select my the next one across, being the group selection tool. I'm just going to actually go into my arrow tool for the moment and click on the timeline just to get rid of the trim window. Now if I go back in to get that group selection tool, it will work in pretty much the same way as my arrow tool does when I lasso around a number of clips. The next one in is the range selection tool. So when I have this particular tool selected, I can go into a clip and I can select portions of the clip. Okay, so this is completely different from the other selection tools in that it allows me to get inside a clip and to select portions of the clip. So this is ways that you would isolate clips and parts of clips. Now the next set of tools are more for selecting portions of a track. Now these are represented by all of these different arrows. So you have single arrows pointing in two directions, you have arrows pointing in both directions, and you have multiple arrows pointing in either direction. The select track forward tool will select the track everywhere on front of wherever you click with this arrow. Okay, so it's selecting the track forward all the way in the direction that the arrow is facing. If I select the opposite direction, then I'm selecting track backwards. So it's still selecting everywhere in which the arrow is pointing all the way to the end of the clips on that track. The arrows facing both ways will select an entire track. So wherever I click on the track, it's going to select in both directions. Okay, so if I go into the middle, anywhere here, it's going to select the entire track. Now the next set are basically the same as the first two, except they work on multiple tracks. So when I select all tracks forward, it's going to select all the tracks in that particular direction. So just for the sake of speed, I'm going to drag clip down onto the timeline, and I'm going to duplicate it onto a few different tracks. I'm going to get the blade tool and just break it up. I'll look at the blade tool in a minute. So now I have a number of different clips sitting on multiple tracks. So if I go back and use this, you'll see how it works. Everywhere that there's a clip, at the point where I click, forwards will be selected, and similarly backwards. Okay, so they are the track selection tools. So these are the tool sets that you would use to select tracks and clips on the timeline without having to get messy by lassoing entire timelines with the selection tool.